welcome to the Illuminati Show, your favorite Monday ritual or weekly ritual. Tuning into this show, we welcome our loyal viewers who join us every week. I'm sure Rob will be here in just a minute to chime in with his opinions. If not, he's watching it on demand. Just want to give a special shout out to Rob for always contributing to the show.
Yes.
You can contribute as well by leaving a comment on the social media platforms, either before or after. If it comes in during the show, we will talk about it. As long as the topic is kind of within the range of what we're talking about. Good evening, Red Petty. How are you? I don't know if I asked you that already. I forgot.
You're good. I'm wearing this jersey, or I'm wearing this shirt, but that doesn't mean anything. I just want you to know. I bought this this is an old. I was just outside doing some snow shoveling and whatever, getting all dirty and in the garage, and I have this old ratty Hawks shirt from 15 years ago when they drafted to Justin Taves, and I like Justin Taves, and I.
You mean Jonathan, right?
What's that?
Jonathan?
Or sorry, Jonathan Taves, right? Sorry.
Yeah, okay. No, that's cool. No, that's interesting the way that sort of presents itself. Yeah, I'm good. You unburied yourself from snow?
Yes.
Good. Because I had a miserable night home on the way home from the hockey rink last night. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, that being said, we have a trade to announce. And I need to be sitting on a chair to read this. We'll get red spots in just a minute. It is involving the San Jose Sharks and the Colorado Avalanche. Whoops.
Yes, sir.
On my screen here. The Colorado Avalanche have acquired Mackenzie Blackwood, Giovanni Smith, a 2027 fifth-round pick. Have sent that to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Alexander Georgiev, Nikolai Kovalenko, a 2026 third-rounder, and a 2026 second-rounder, and a 2025 fifth-rounder. What do we make of this? This is after Colorado recently made a trade with Nashville to acquire Nashville's backup goaltender. So in essence, Colorado has a brand new goaltending tandem. What is going on here?
Well, in a nutshell, what I believe is Colorado no longer believes in Georgiev. That's as simple as that. A guy that was their number one guy the last 2 years, won 38 and 40 games respectively. He just hasn't played well. And I think it's not even that you haven't played well, because you could have your number one guy not playing well, and that's like a combination, or his record's not good, and that's a combination of him, but it's also the team not playing well and whatever else. But what this tells me is that they believe, and I would agree to a large extent, is that Colorado is playing well as a team. They just don't get the save when they need it. And it's not like they're being barraged. I mean, they're a very good team. So that's the problem. He's letting in too many soft goals, too many weak goals. His play has dropped off. And like when you look at it in terms of what like Colorado keeps, I'm reading here, 14% of his salary, they send away Georgiev along with forward Nikolai Kovalenko, who's still a high-end prospect. He hasn't done much yet, but he's a high-end prospect, son of a former NHLer, a second-round draft pick in 26 and a fifth-round draft pick. And coming back is Mackenzie Blackwood. So they've paid a lot to get back who they believe is a upgrade in terms of their netminder, and they're willing to take on the salary of their previous guy and get not much in return besides Mackenzie Blackwood. You know, and just on another note, I've always liked Mackenzie Blackwood. I don't know about you, but he was drafted, but he's always been on kind of like he's been on lousy teams. Like who drafted? I think he was drafted by New Jersey.
He was
Drafted
behind
by New
Corey
Jersey.
Schneider.
Yeah, he's with New Jersey when New Jersey was terrible for the last few years, and then he was or last several years back in the mid 2010s into COVID. And after COVID after traded to the Sharks, who are even a worse team. Like I'm just saying, like, so he hasn't had a great team in front of him. It'll be interesting to see sometimes a change of pace for a guy like that, a new scenery, a really good team. It might be all that they need, right, to get him on his feet and to get him going and to make him a huge part of their success now in the second half of the season and into the playoffs. But for me, that's what it is. It's getting rid of one goalie who we just don't have any faith in anymore. We're willing to keep his salary. We're willing to trade a second-round draft pick. All of that to you, if you will please send us a goalie who we believe is a huge upgrade and has been underappreciated the last 8 or 10 years. So, wow, that's something.
Can I suggest that this is a fair trade for both sides?
It is. But you know what it also tells me is that there's Colorado's not willing to pay more to get an upgrade. Like if you want, I don't know, take your pick, Jacob Markstrom or Connor Hellebuyck, Andrei Vasilevsky. Not that they're going to trade guys like that, but I'm just saying if you want number one, top end, 1A, proven goaltender, you're going to have to give up probably an existing top pairing defenseman or top forward, probably a centerman and a first round draft pick to take on Hellebuyck or to get Hellebuyck back. Not that the Jets would trade him, but I'm just saying, and that's why I think Colorado just says, well, we don't want to trade away any of our really good players. We're not willing to trade Cale Makar or Devin Taves or Casey Middlestad or, heaven forbid, Nathan McKinnon. So what are we going to do? We're going to upgrade who we believe is somebody that we see on the radar. We think he could be much better for us being in the right environment, his record and goals.
And in the right structure, too.
What's that?
In the right structure. Like in my experience, potentially Blackwood has played on teams with a poor structure.
Well, yeah, poor structure, just bad teams. You can argue whatever you want. But I'm just saying, I just think he's been underappreciated, and he hasn't been. Hang on. He hasn't been. I don't want her. She's been whining the whole time. She's got to go out.
Yeah. So it's interesting when
you
look at.
I got problems with the dog. Sorry. I just think you know what I think? It's one of those situations where the whole league, I think they don't see the value in Blackwood, but I think Avalanche are willing to take a risk. And at the same time, they want to get themselves out from under Georgiev. So get him gone, retain his salary, and bring in a guy who they believe has been underappreciated, underutilized, hasn't been in the right situation, and his ability has not shown in his stats up until this time.
It's interesting because you look at he's a 4-year NHLer, right? The 2 years with the Rangers. Granted, he was a backup.
Who you're talking about Georgia?
They were respectable, but last year and this year they've really dropped off for Georgia.
You're talking Georgiev?
Yeah, Georgiev. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Well, he was somewhat unproven. He just played here and there as the backup to Shesterkin, and then Avalanche got him, and he played well the first few years that he was there. But I don't know if some guys, it's funny, right? You lose your confidence, and it's tough. So I don't know. I just think this. I don't know if it's a win for what it is for San Jose. They get a second-round draft pick, and they move on from a guy that's going to be a UFA after this year anyway. Does Georgiev have an extra year under his contract? I think he does. I think he's still got another year after this one, whereas Blackwood is a UFA after the end of the season, and he makes a little bit more money. So I'm just saying, it's for them. And they get a second rounder, like I say, along with Nikolai Kovalenko. So whose father played with the Avalanche 20, 25 years ago with Sakic and Forsberg and so on. So, but anyway, yeah, I don't know if it's a win-win for each
Yeah,
team. I think each team is doing what they got to do according to what their situation is right now. So
Georgia have signed a 3-year, $10.2 million contract on July 10th of 2022.
yeah.
So that would mean that his contract expires this year.
At the end of next year, I thought.
End of this year.
Okay, so he's a UFA after. Oh, but he might be an RFA because this is only his 5th year in the league. But then he's over 27.
He is a UFA in 2025 at age 29.
Okay.
So that would be this coming year. Yeah, it's a year 3 of 3 according to Puckpedia. So he's a UFA this year.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It makes the whole deal. It makes the whole deal look even worse, if you ask me. But
I just think Colorado wants him gone. They just want him out, and they want an upgrade. And this is a very inexpensive way for them to get an upgrade. Like I said, to get somebody who they believe is undervalued in the marketplace relative to his talent level because of the scenes or the scenarios that he's been playing under for the first few years of his career, and especially you in San Jose. You can't judge anybody with their record or their stats or anything playing in San Jose. That is just a tire fire. So I'm saying if I'm not judging anybody by their stats or anything according to any years they've put in San Jose in the last 5 years, because they've been terrible across the board. So, but anyway. Yeah, we'll see. That'd be something if Wedgwood comes out and then now in the next 15 or 20 games he plays for Colorado, he goes like 16-2-2 or something. Then Colorado's going to say, yeah, I think we did pretty good here.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting the way it works this year, and we'll see if the goaltending ends up fixing itself in Colorado as a result of this trade. Interesting, but they have to swap out the whole tandem. Ian Lewis has chimed in on the comment line. Colorado plays good. Look at how good Wedgwood looks versus Nashville. Georgia is done. Oh, yeah, Georgia. Okay, he just basically sent the same comment twice. Colorado plays. Look good. Look how good Wedgwood looks versus Nashville. Georgia done. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. And I also think there's a veteran backup for Vladislav Askarov, who's going to be the number one in waiting in San Jose once they get that coming together, which seems to be pretty decently with what they have going there, and Matlin Celebrini and Eklund, I think, is there as well. So. And Mike Rear gets a draft pick, and Colorado keeps 11% of the contract. Not the worst. Not the absolute worst. Speaking of it, what do you think of the Winnipeg Jets this week? A loss against St. Louis, 2 wins, and then a loss, so 2-2. I will submit this into the evidence to discuss. Since the Jets have played 2 games or a game every day or every other day since about the middle of November. Their record now sits at 7-8. It was 7-7 prior or after the game against Chicago. 7-7 in their last 14 with 13 out of 15 on the road. Yeah, I would take that, but it just seems like the play has regressed a little bit. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Listen, you know what I think? Actually, I want to. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Jets, but it actually relates into another point. The Jets. And I don't think anybody's going to dispute it with me. The Jets are a good team when they can skate. their strength is not being heavy, although they are big and they can bang along the boards, but they're not this rock'em sock'em kind of whatever. That's not their style. Their style is pressure, skating, forcing turnovers, forcing the puck into the offensive end, getting the puck quickly out of their end and skating up through the neutral zone into the offensive end. It's about speed. It's about movement. It's about go, 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 go. And when the Jets are tired, they can't play that way. Then they just look like an average team. And that's what you saw last night. The Jets, in my mind, I mean, they said, oh yeah, we got too pretty, blah, blah, blah. But you know when you get too pretty is because you don't move your legs, because you're tired. You try to make one extra pass because you're not willing to do the work that is to go to the net, shoot pucks, and drive to the net. And I just think in general, I'm not going to blame any one person, but I just think the team is tired. They've played a ton of games and it hurts. And I just think, like, if I went to the game yesterday on my own and I bought a ticket at Center Ice for me and my wife, and I spent $350, $400 to watch that, that's not worth it. That's not NHL hockey. That's something. It's guys skating around, but it's not NHL hockey. And to me, it's a, and this is a bigger issue I have with the NHL, but to me is a disservice to the league, to the game, to have teams get so drained and travel so much and get tired. And it's not just the Jets. There's lots of teams in that boat to put on a product like that. That's embarrassing. And in my mind, it's a few things. It's the NHL, money, which makes me sick, number one. And it's all on our backs, paying these millionaires and putting the money into their chests, into their war chest for the union and for the NHL head office and then all the players. Number two, it's all about this whole Four Nations Cup, because they've got to condense the schedule. They got to get 82 games in to give the players a week off, everybody, or 5 days, 6 days off for the player break because of the contract, plus the Four Nations Cup. So they got to jam all these games into a short period of time. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, I don't care what's going on. I don't care about the Olympics. I don't care about Four Nations Cup, whatever. I don't care about scheduling. I don't care about arenas available. It's blah, 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 blah. It's all noise to me. In my mind, if you want to sell a great product, there should never be back-to-back games in my mind, ever.
Wow.
Ever. Never. I would never have a back-to-back. And the only exception, the only caveat maybe that I might consider is if a team is on the road and they travel, they get a day off, and they play in New Jersey one night and on the island the next night, or in MSG one night and on the island the next night. Maybe, because it's the same city. There's no travel on a train or a plane. It's just on a bus from one side of town to the other. But even that, I don't like it because it ruins the product. The product is watered down. It's made to be cheap. And I personally would never pay $300 or $400 to go see the crap that they played yesterday at 5:00 in the afternoon. That was garbage. Do you think normally Columbus and Winnipeg playing in a normal game where they've each had 3 days rest or 2 days rest, that's the game that you're going to see? Come on. Garbage, in my opinion. So what do you think?
Question. Yep. Did you look at my show script?
No. Why? Was that on the show script?
Because one of the points I had was, is the Four Nations Cup being disingenuous to the overall product cramming these games? And I think I know your answer. Yeah. It is a resounding yes.
Yes. And it's not just Winnipeg. I mean, I'm saying that because I'm a Jet fan. I just saw that game yesterday night or yesterday afternoon was an example. But it just shows you, like, it's Columbus comes in with 1 extra day's rest. The Jets, they play the night before, and it's not even that they play at home and play back-to-back. They played in a different city, the last game of this huge long time on the road, and then they come home, and then you don't even have the game at 7. You have it at 5 in the afternoon. So you even jam the Jets for an extra 2 hours of time. Why? Every home game they have is at 7:00. Why put it at 5:00? Garbage. You know what? As much as I like hockey, there's some stuff that goes on, and it's not oh, Rick, it's rink availability. It's to make it more conducive to families with children, to bring the children to their game on the weekends, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. It's all noise to me. If I was, I would say king for a day, but if I was Gary Bettman for a day at NHL, I would never have back-to-back games, ever. Because to me, it ruins the product, it waters it down, and worse, it makes players more prone to injury, more like it ruins everything about it. And it's the same thing in the NFL. I hear the NFL, they got Monday Night Football. It used to be a treat. You'd play Sunday, all the games on Sunday, and then, you'd highlight. When I was a kid and even into the 80s, Monday Night Football, if you were a really good team, and it was only the good teams, right? Like they knew teams that were high end, the Eastern Conference or the National Conference versus the American Association, like two high-ranked teams, like the Cowboys and the Steelers, or somebody playing on Monday night. It was a privilege. It was an honor. All other games on Sunday. Now you got Monday night games, Thursday night games, Friday night games on Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. Saturday games are going to be starting now in December. It's a joke.
Wednesday game on Christmas.
You know what the record is? I saw somebody show it. If you're have two teams playing on Sunday, and then those two teams play on Thursday night football, the visiting team, the team that has to travel to the other team, their record is like their winning percentage is like 10%.
And they wonder why the Thursday night games are snoozers.
They are, because the home team wins almost exclusive and pounds the visiting team. It's and especially as you get into the third and fourth quarter, and then injuries happen. It's garbage, and it's all about money. It's all about this, and it's all at the cost of the players in terms of injury, and it's at the cost of how good the game is. Some of those Thursday night games, NFL, are just garbage. They're yawners. I mean, whoever's doing the announcing on those games, they have to try and make it interesting. Oh, here's a situation. A guy's got a 3rd and 8. And, I wonder if he's going to do a down and out, or he's going to do a hitch pass to the tight end coming across the middle. Like, it's garbage. And it's the same for the NHL. I vented. I said my piece. Listen, I like the Four Nations Cup, but why not start the season then a week earlier? Start at the last for these special years. When you have the Olympics, it's once every 4 years. Start the season September 24th or September 28th as opposed to October 10th.
Spread the games out a bit more.
Yeah. But
I feel bad for anybody that has season tickets in early January for that 8-game homestand. Jeez Louise. Glad I'm not one of them that has to worry about going to 8 games or selling my tickets for 8 straight games. That was always one of the drawbacks, because I had season tickets when the Jets came back, 2011 to about 2018 or so. And I always dreaded those long homestands, because some nights I was at the arena like 4 nights a week, and then on top of my other stuff. And that's actually why I gave them up. It's just there was too much. Not even then, like they weren't even a pretty decent team back then. Like they were average, but they weren't what they are now. I think in my time as a season ticket holder, we only had 1 year where we went to the playoffs, and that was against the Anaheim Ducks for 2 games. Till I went to game 4. A buddy of mine went to game 3, and that was it. And times economically have changed, and that's obviously not the point of this conversation. But one of the interesting points, Rich, that I wanted to touch on is it seems like Mark Scheifele is back.
Yeah, whatever he had irritating him, he seems to have gotten over, because he started to take faceoffs again, which I think was the huge fact, or the huge show in terms of knowing that he wasn't quite himself. And you know what? He hasn't played well the last few weeks, up until the last few games, I think, because of that. I think that injury really bothered him, not just on faceoffs, but on being able to win pucks in the corner, work along the boards, all of that. So, yeah, I'm happy to see he's healthy because the Jets, they don't go anywhere without a healthy Scheifele, in my opinion. So
Yep, and that's just to get Ehlers up and going, and I hear that he might be back on the ice as early as tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Skating with the team when the Bruins are here. So more news is good news.
Any update on Samberg?
Sorry?
Any update on Samberg?
He'll be early January, from what I understand.
Okay.
So that'll be the way that goes. They did make one roster move today, and that was sending Brad Lambert back to the Moose and calling up Nikita Chibrikov. What do you make of this?
Wow. So there is Chibrikov a center or is he a winger?
No, he's a winger.
So they're probably going to move Nemestikov back to the
Probably
middle.
Nemestikov back to the middle, and then Chibrikov is going to be on the second or the third line.
Wow, and Chibrikov, you know that it's interesting because he's a feisty player.
He's a feisty player with some skill.
Yeah, but he's small. He's 5'10". So you've got Cole Perfetti, 5'11", Chibrikov, 5'10", Nemestikov, 5'11", 6 feet. Like those are all little munchkins running around on that second line. They better skate and they better be able to do other stuff because they're not going to win a lot of pucks along the boards. So in my opinion, but is this just, do you think this is just, okay, we've seen Lambert. He hasn't, like if Lambert had scored like, let's say a goal a game the last 3 or 4 games, he probably would stay up. But the fact that he hasn't done a lot, okay, we send you down. Now we get a look at Chibrikov in the same scenario. Is that what you think they're doing?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Are you listening? You're not listening to my question. You're watching something else.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a note. I'm looking at a note here to see if somebody maybe got hurt.
Okay, no, but I'm asking you if they sent down Lambert, or if Lambert would have scored a goal a game, like had, let's say, over the last 4 games,
to answer your question, I don't think so.
They wouldn't have sent him down. So do you think what they're doing now?
I think they still would have sent him down.
So what are they doing with bringing up Chibrikov? They just want to see what he looks like.
I think they want to move. Personal opinion is I think they want to move the Nemestikov back to the middle, and they want to, or not, the Nemestikov back to the middle, and then they have, then they have Chibrikov either on the second or the third line.
Well, I don't think they're going to break up Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter, in my humble opinion, but maybe they will. I guess that's possible. Yeah. Okay. But to answer your original question about the Jets, I mean, I'm talking about the Jets, and so they went over the last week. I think you said they would go. I don't know if you said they'd go 2-2 or did you go 3-1? I think I said 2-1-1. I don't know if you said 2-2.
I said 3-1. I said they were going to lose. The only game I thought we were going to lose was the game after St. Louis, whoever they played.
Oh, at the Sabres. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they ended up going 2-2. Against 4 games they could have won. They end up going 2-2, half at home, half on the road. It's kind of funny. They lost their 2 home games and they won their 2 road games. But you know what? I just think the Jets are tired. Like I look at the schedule now. They play the Bruins, Vegas, and Montreal every second day at home over the next week. And then they get an extra day off. So after Saturday night against the Habs, which is an early game, they're going to take Sunday off. They won't even be on the ice on Sunday. Monday, they'll probably have a light skate in the morning, then have lunch and jump on the plane in the afternoon to head down to San Jose and then play on Tuesday. And I think that just having an extra day off, I think is going to help to rejuvenate the team, in my opinion. I think that over the last week they've played well. I think they were, I don't know. I think they were tired. They just looked tired against St. Louis and slow, and they looked tired against Columbus. And against the Sabres and Chicago, I think they had a little bit more jump, and they ended up winning. So I don't know. It was It's what you'd expect maybe for like a team that's in the middle of a malaise in the middle of the season, I suppose. I thought on another note, I thought that Eric Comrie has played very, very well. It's such a I find it, not sad is not the right word. Just find it interesting that he plays so well, but yet in the games when he's in, the Jets don't play well in front of him, and they don't score a lot of goals, and it's just really like, yeah, like yesterday's game. Yesterday's game.
It's 1-2. It's 1-2, 2, and 1 goals in the last 4 games that he's played.
Yeah. So.
But again, you could also argue that part of the backup's job is to take the crappy games. I mean, you did a tired team on the back end of a back-to-back more times than not. You did a sleepy team. The backup's job is never easy. It's to clean up the mess and basically get the starter ready for hopefully what'll be a playoff run.
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, life in the NHL is not as a backup isn't very luxurious, so to say, especially when you play behind a backup that's a workhorse like Hellebuyck. I mean, the guys that backed up Martin Brodeur were never saw the net very often, or Marty Turco, or Dominic Hasek. And they played 72, 73, 74 games every year. So, I mean, yeah, the backup gets the short end of the stick, especially in Winnipeg. Like, historically, now Laurent Brossoit might be the abnormality to the whole thing. Now, he hasn't played all year with the Toronto Blackhawks, the various surgeries and what have you. But, Laurent Brossoit was the one backup where it actually worked to have success. Now, that being said, I think when you have a goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck, you're playing Connor Hellebuyck when healthy more times than not. However, I think in January, you're going to see the Jets maybe start to pull back on Connor Hellebuyck a little bit. Because, listen, I'd be shocked if anybody but number 37 in the U.S. net for every game of the Four Nations tournament.
Yeah, well, it's only 4 games, right? Potentially, if you go all the way to the final. So,
yeah, and listen, you just better hope if you're a manager that your players avoid serious injuries in a tournament like that.
Yep.
Because that's not it for anybody.
No, I agree.
I mean, who was it that got hurt at the Olympics? Or just before the Olympics all those years ago? Stamkos. He broke his leg.
Yes. Yes.
2 weeks or so before the Olympics, and there was another injury at the Olympics. Was it Hasek way back in the day? But that's why I hesitate with these best on best tournaments that they're in the middle of the season. And people say it's the cost of doing business, but if I'm an owner and if I'm a Jets and Connor Hellebuyck gets hurt playing at the international tournament, I wouldn't be happy.
Okay, but it's a chance to put your players on display. I don't have a problem with the Olympics or the Four Nations Cup, whether they do the Four Nations Cup at the beginning. I know back when they did the Canada Cup or whatever it was, they did that at the beginning of the season. They did it in September before the season started back in the 80s. So you could do it then too. I don't have a problem with players playing it. I don't have a problem with the NHL players wanting to be in it and be involved in it and playing with their country. It's a risk. Hellebuyck could play those 4 games, play fantastic, win the cup with his American cohorts, and get on a plane, come home, his wife pick him up at the airport. He steps out of his truck onto some icy snow on his driveway in Winnipeg, and he slips and he falls backwards, and he breaks his wrist falling backwards. I mean, anything can happen. Like, it's life, right? Like, I don't know. A guy can fall in the bathtub and can crack his head, or can bang his elbow, or hurt his knee or something. So hockey is hockey. You're going to play. Players are going to play. They have lives. They're not just robots. You don't just, when they're done playing, you don't put them on the shelf and pull out their power packs and just let them rest on the shelf until you need them to play the next game. They have lives. They've got children. They have hobbies. They have interests. So if they want to play in a Four Nations Cup because that's what they want to do to play for their country, I have no problem with it. But
yeah, and listen, as much as I'm coming across as I don't want my players getting hurt or a player getting hurt, you're also not going to say, no, you can't represent your country given the opportunity.
Yep.
That's the side of this. There was the coaching change again in the NHL this week. Luke Richardson out of a job in Chicago. Anders Sorensen is in as interim head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. We saw him in the game on Saturday against the Jets. What do you think of this coaching change for Chicago?
Well, I just think it's one of those things you have to do something, right? Colorado's going to be a good team in a few years. They've got lots of draft picks, lots of young players, but they're not there yet, and they haven't surrounded Bedard with enough really good, talented crew around him to make them even somewhat competitive. So, you keep losing. You got to do something, right? So I don't know. Even if this coach is around and they get a little bit better, like they're not going to turn it around and suddenly become a playoff team this year or into the end of the season, like St. Louis did, whatever it was, 6-7 years ago, or like the Oilers did last year or the year before. I just think they're just not a good team yet, and they will be. And maybe the fans are complaining. Maybe this pulls a little bit of pressure off the GM, buys him a little bit more time with the media and with the public and with ownership to draft a few more players and develop a few more guys so they slowly progress and get better. But
interesting part here, Rhett, as well, is oftentimes when a team is in a rebuild, I don't want to say there's a lame duck coach that doesn't get to see the finished product, but this is what Luke Richardson was dealt with. A team that is rebuilding but underperforming. There's a coaching change that happens. He doesn't see the future benefits, much like the coach before Joel Quenneville in Chicago didn't see the benefit of the Tays and Kays dynasty until Quenneville got there. It's just unfortunate. And he's going to land back on his feet, Luke Richardson, but it's just part of the business. You're hired to be fired as a coach.
Yep. And I think, you know what, honestly, I think Luke Richardson is a good coach. Like when I heard him talk and when I heard him, even how he reacted, like he never embarrassed his players. He never, like they would get down 2 goals, 3 goals, even with some bad plays. He wasn't screaming and yelling and like a Tortorella and getting in guys' ears and yelling and screaming. He was trying to coach him up. He was trying to be a calming influence and trying to keep it under control because he realized this is a long play, right? This is a marathon. It's not a sprint for a team like Chicago right now. He just wasn't around to see the marathon to the last mile. But and I just appreciate him as a coach in that way. And he's going to find work. He may not get a head coach right away, but you know what, Luke Richardson, probably in the off season this year, teams will make some changes. He'll get hired as an assistant coach somewhere. And in another 2, 3, 5 years, he'll get an opportunity again to be a head coach. Hopefully
it's interesting. I was speaking to somebody with connections in the NHL in the last day or two and asking about Luke Richardson.
Yeah.
And the word that got back to me was hockey lifer. That was the word that this person
hockey
came
what?
back. Lifer. Lifer.
Oh, lifer. Oh, okay, sorry.
Lifer. Lifer. David paid his dues to get his opportunity, and unfortunately, he isn't going to be able to reap the success benefits in Chicago.
No.
But I did have a follow-up. Does any of this have to do with Connor Bedard underperforming?
How old is Connor Bedard?
20? 19, 20?
19. He's not 20. 19.
Okay, 19, yeah.
you know what? He's going to be a good player. Is he? I wouldn't put him in the. I don't even know if he's necessarily going to be in the realm of a McDavid. I don't think he's quite there. He doesn't have the speed of McDavid. He's got a much better shot than McDavid. I think he'll be a better scorer. He'll score more goals. He's got a really good shot, but he's not strong enough. He's not big enough, and it's hard for a 19-year-old kid, and you don't have great players around you. Like if you put a Bedard on a team, I'm just saying hypothetically, you put him with Colorado, you put him with Winnipeg, you put him with New York Rangers, you put him on a line on the wing with Scheifele and Connor. Like, wow, right? Or you put him on a line with Nathan McKinnon and whoever from Colorado. Wow, right? But now he's got to be center. He's got to be the driver. He's a young guy. I don't know if you saw that play. It's so indicative of the whole season that Chicago's had. He was at, I think it might have been a power play, and he had the puck. He came to the blue line. He was skating along the blue line, and Adam Lowry kind of had him there. And Adam Lowry, I mean, 6'5", 230 pounds, or whatever. He just leaned on Bedard. Just leaned on him. Just pushed them right out of the offensive zone. Pushed him over the blue line to take the puck away from him and to push him away.
Yeah.
You know why? Because Adam Lowry is 29 years old. He's a full-grown man, an 9-year vet in the NHL, and Connor Bedard is a rookie, and he's small, and he's learning the game, and he's not big, and he's not strong on his feet relative to grown men that are 50 pounds heavier and 5 inches taller or 6 inches taller. So, but it'll come. So and long story short, I don't blame Connor Bedard. It's that team. They're just not good enough. They have far too many holes and far too many weak spots in it. So
I also think Chicago is a bit further back of what Pittsburgh was when Crosby was in his second year. Pittsburgh had a bit more of a supporting cast at the time than what Chicago has now. So
I would agree.
I think to compare the two would be very, very would be a very, very poor comparison.
I would agree.
At the same time, though, when it comes to a contract extension after this rookie deal, now I realize he becomes an RFA and not a free agent till who knows when. Are you hesitant if you're Connor Bedard to sign long term in Chicago?
I don't think so. As long as it's like McDavid. As long as he saw there was a long-term plan, and look at McDavid. You know, he had to wait. 9 years into his career, 8 or 9 years into his career before his team could get into the Stanley Cup Finals. Now they lost, but I'm just saying but he had to see that Edmonton was making that commitment to get better, and Edmonton has made a commitment to get better. They've signed Draisaitl to a long-term deal. They have brought in other players. They've upgraded their talent level, right? So and I think that's the same thing for Chicago. As long as Chicago keeps getting better, drafting, getting the right people in positions and whatever, it's not an instant thing. It's going to take that. You're not going to see Chicago being this playoff perennial cup winning team probably for another 5-6 years, in my opinion.
And that's fine as long as I think you see progress. You'll be a pretty happy individual. And listen, there's nothing money can't fix, right? You're making millions of dollars by then, and you just gotta hope that one day you can get your team into the playoffs and start from there. I mean, but if you want to get into how this rebuild has started, I think Chicago's really kind of set themselves back because they've torn this thing down to the studs. And quite honestly, I don't think they had any other choice but to do it this way.
Yep. And I just think he's gonna sign long-term in Chicago. They drafted him. He's gonna make a commitment. As long as they make a commitment to him to improve the team, he'll make a commitment to them to sign a long-term deal. So
yeah, it's one of those things where unfortunately, you just have to go with the growing pains, and the growing pains in this case might be a bit longer than in than intended, whether you like it or not. But again, I think now you can kind of start to surround them with a long-term core, and then slowly but surely you get better.
Yep.
Anything else stand out to you? Maybe with the Four Nations teams, or
no. Actually, the players that got drafted or got selected are pretty much who I thought they were, especially for Sweden, Finland, and the USA. I was the most surprised out of all the teams that were selected. I was the most surprised by some of the picks for Team Canada, but that only makes sense because they have, after the superstars, like the superstar level, they have a lot of very good players at the second level, right? Like Scheifele not in, somebody else in. What? Who are you waving at? Who are you waving at?
I bet someone is on a call listening to this show at the same time.
Okay. But what I wanted to say, though, is on another note, I don't know if you saw, former Jet Lemieux got waived by the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's now signed, I believe, in Switzerland in the professional league there.
Listen, it makes that trade Chevy made with Buffalo all the more better.
Mm-hmm.
Did I think Lemieux was part of either the Buffalo trade or the or one other trade?
No, he was part of the trade.
The Rangers.
No, he was part of the trade when they sent Evander Kane to Buffalo and they got back Stafford and Myers.
Okay.
And then the Lemieux was like the rook. And then Armia, and then he was like sort of a brand new, like he had just been selected, or it was his second year or whatever after being drafted. But you know what? Sometimes you have the Tkachuk brothers who are way better than their father was, you could argue, when he played in the NHL. Yeah. Then you got other guys that they don't live up. I mean, they're in the NHL, but they're just not quite the same player as their father was. And that's just the way it is. And that's no harp on Brandon Lemieux. Played in the NHL. He's an NHL caliber player. I just think he's just right on the bubble, right? So now he goes to Europe. You know what? Go to Europe. You're going to be much more important in their lineup. You're going to have chances in the power play. You're going to have more room. You can develop your confidence. You can develop your skating. You can, because it's a bigger ice surface, you can develop your offensive skills. And then you come back in a year or two, you come back to the NHL, and maybe somebody will let you have a chance again. If I'm Lemieux, that's what I tell him as his agent. So, or like I should say.
And the other thing too is, speaking of a former Jet, there was Jacob Trouba that got traded for a bag of pucks, quite honestly.
Wow.
To the Anaheim Ducks. He has one year left on his contract this year and next year. What do you make of this?
Actually, this one's surprising, and I'll throw it back to you, but I'm really surprised by it because I thought the Rangers were all in with this group. They've been for the last 5 years. They've been together, right? And I mean, he's your captain. I just thought they'd be all in on this for one more year. But you know what it is that $8 million a year for another year and a half. And he's had 4 assists in roughly 1/3 of the season. I know he kills penalties, but he doesn't drive offensive play. And you can get a lot of players into your lineup for $8 million. So
that's the other thing. And you can also upgrade a lot for $8 million, because I don't think Trouba is an $8 million player anymore.
Not anymore. He was in the first few years of that contract, but the last few years he just hasn't been. So, and New York has to change it up, right?
Other thing kind of tied to this, there was a rumor that came out today, courtesy of Larry Brutz of the New York Post, that suggested, according to sources, that the Rangers are now eyeing Brady Tkachuk from the Ottawa Senators with this excess cap space that they've acquired. Michael Andlauer, the owner of the Ottawa Senators, is not taking too kindly to this. Nor should he, but again, it's a media report, not a player, poaching or anything. There's no chance Ottawa trades Brady Tkachuk, is there?
Well, there's no chance with what?
There's no chance the Senators trade Brady Tkachuk, is there? No,
But I
like to
thought
me, that's a
Andlauer,
non.
but I thought Andlauer was just upset because there was soft tampering. He called it that there
Yeah,
were
that he told it soft tampering.
right. The GMs are inquiring, and there's talk in the paper about potentially Ottawa wanting to move him, and not stirred up by Ottawa, which is why I think Andlauer is kind of upset about it. Right. So
Right.
yeah.
But like to me, it starts with 4 first-round picks. That's a starting point for Brady Tkachuk. You want
Oh, you're never going to get 4 first-round picks for Brady
no,
Tkachuk.
but it's like seriously, you want to have a discussion. That's where it starts for me.
You're that okay. That
That's
you
that's
will,
my polite way of saying there's no starting point.
there now. Listen, it's possible. Like, listen, Wayne Gretzky got traded, and if Wayne Gretzky can get traded in the prime of his career, but it was for other reasons, it was because of money at the time, because the owner couldn't afford him. But if you could trade Wayne Gretzky, anybody can be traded. So is it possible Brady Tkachuk could be traded if they just say we have to change it up? We've got so much salary tied up in him. We want to spread it out with other players. Okay, fine. But you know what? Brady Tkachuk, that type of player, he's so valuable in the playoffs. He's gritty. He's sandpaper. He fights. He body checks. He goes hard to the net. He's the guy on the power play that stands in front of the net and blocks the view of the goaltender and does all the dirty work. He fights when the guys on his team get run by other teams, by other players on other teams. He stands up for his teammates. You know, all those factors, like, I don't see Ottawa trading him away. What are you going to get in return? More offensive power? You don't need more offensive grit. You don't need more offensive ability, Ottawa. You need to play better defensively. You need more guys like Brady Tkachuk that are willing to block shots and do all the dirty work. You don't need more floaters. You don't need more Stutzlas. You need more Tkachuk. So in my mind, I don't know why you trade him, in my mind. But
Speaking of it, what do you think of the Ottawa Senators? Eventually, the rubber has to meet the road here, no?
that what? The rubber has to hit the road? What?
The rubber's got to meet the road as far as this core's got to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Ottawa is is Ottawa not a surprise for you this year? They're a real surprise.
They're a disappointment, to be honest.
Well, that's the surprise, is how bad they are, right? I really thought they were going to be much, much better this year.
Like they brought in Linus Olmark. I at least thought they'd be a playoff team.
Yep.
It just goes to show that I think you can have the world's best goalie, but if you don't have a team around them, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah. And you know what? It just surprised me because it's not like if they had lost Tkachuk, Stutzla, Allmark in the first few weeks of the season, and they were gone for big chunks of time, then you could say, okay, Ottawa's it. But I mean, they lost Shabbat, right? I think they lost him for a chunk of the year at the beginning of the year. But otherwise, the other guys were in the lineup, and they just, I don't know if it's they haven't gelled, they haven't bought into Travis Green's system yet. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm just surprised. Are you not surprised by how poorly they've played relative to what they look like on paper?
They're consistently inconsistent for where I had them. They played good for spurts, and then they have this 2-6-1 run where
Yep.
they don't resemble anything of a playoff team.
Yeah.
And to me, that's exactly why they're not going to make the playoffs this year at this rate. But
are they in a playoff
what do we
spot
think the
right now?
Jets do this week?
Are they, just to answer or to ask the question,
Sorry?
is Ottawa in a playoff spot right now?
No, they're not.
They're not. See, and it gets really tough now. You get into December, into the new year, you got to really start playing really well, like winning 8 out of every 10 games to make up any space on all the other teams that even might go 500. You're only going to make up 4 or 6 points over a 10-game period, right? So you've got to really, if you're going to make the playoffs, you got to start putting it together now for Ottawa.
Well, and again, their division that they're in, gives them no room for runway. The Leafs, Boston, now suddenly really warm.
Yep.
Buffalo again. Buffalo's even further ahead of Ottawa in this rebuild, and they're in the mud. Yeah, to me, there's just a lot more questions and answers at this point.
Yeah.
And the cream of that division remains the cream of that division.
Yeah. You're right.
The only thing I think we did foresee coming was Tampa taking a bit of a step back, and I think that's happened by Tampa Bay standards.
And then also the Bruins, you could argue too.
Although the Bruins have been a lot better lately, they did work themselves into that top 3 in that division. Go figure out why they're 8-3 under Joe Sato, and they couldn't do anything with Jim Montgomery. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. So the Jets now over the next week, are we going to do a show next Monday?
Yes, next Monday, yeah.
Okay, so then we've got 3 home games. All, you could argue, pretty tough teams. I mean, for sure, the Bruins in Vegas, and then Montreal on Saturday night, which will be awful. Hockey night in Canada. There'll probably be more Habs jerseys in the crowd than Jets jerseys. I'm just going to throw up into a bag while watching the game at home. It'll just be awful. I may have to call Air Canada to see if I can get one of those motion sickness bags from them for Saturday night. But I think that's going to be a tough go. Like, those are 3 very good teams, especially Montreal plays really well against Winnipeg. They just have had Winnipeg's number, especially coming into Winnipeg over the last few years. So I'm considering how the Jets have played the last week or two. I'm going to go right. I'm going to do a Michael Garrell 1-1-1. That's my prediction. I think they're going to win against the Bruins. They're going to lose against Vegas, and they're going to tie and then lose in overtime to Montreal.
2-1. They lose to Vegas. Win tomorrow and Saturday.
Okay.
If you want a scheduling toward, Vegas will have had 8 days off prior to their game on Thursday against the Jets.
Why do Vegas have 8 days off?
Figure that one out. I don't know. They haven't played since a week Wednesday. They haven't played since last Wednesday. So, interesting discussion.
All right. Great show.
Okay, great show. A little bit of noise here around me. That's why I've kind of been looking around. Anyway, we'll see everybody next Monday. On behalf of Rich Petty, Michael J. saying so long. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.